I've been blessed to have walked the walk. I wasn't a violent individual, but my journey, I fell victim to a lot of the addictions in the neighborhood. Again, I'm 68 years old. I have a long journey, and I have a lot more to do. So you could be educated in a book. You could see statistics. But when you don't really understand the struggle that they don't know, how to get out of that rut, then how do you guide them? I sat around with all these individuals with double masters and just wondering, what am I doing here? And speaking to a lot of the staffers, they said, hey, you're the better person because you understand. You've lived that. You understand what these individuals are going through.
This is a very special day for me because I have someone very special and dear to my heart in the room here at the AV Lyric Lounge. Welcome to the AV Lyric Lounge. Today, please welcome Darrel Sauceda.
Thank you. Yes, Andy, I'm humbled to be in your presence, as always.
I'm always humbled. Yeah. It's an honor. There's so much that I just want to hear because you inspire me so much. And for those of you who don't know Darrel, he is the chair of the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a grateful member, and I love everyone there. He and his wife Anna are great friends, and we've gotten to know each other very well over the years, and we've shared a lot of great moments. And I've learned so much wisdom. So therefore, I wanted to bring him in and just, have us all listen to the amazing things that he's done. And also, I wanted to personally know a little bit more about your life and your upbringing and your childhood and where you're from. Interestingly enough, my grandfather, who you remind me of a very young Frank Ibarra. My grandfather's last name was Ibarra. And when my grandfather was young, you guys have I don't know if it's because, am I right to say that your family was from Arizona too, or from Texas?
So we started in Texas, right? And but we're by way of Imperial Valley. So we're from I'm a California kid.
Okay. Yeah. And so my grandfather was had a family in Texas, and then came over to Arizona, and then from Arizona here, and stuff. But just some similarities that I thought were pretty cool. Since the second I met you, I was like, wow, and my grandfather was a really cool guy. He was a realtor, a broker in one of the first Latino real estate brokers in Central California, in the town of Watsonville, where we lived.
Wow.
Very young, starting it out then, and he built his. He owned some properties and started a very, very good, trustworthy, real estate brokers. And now my uncle Chuck runs it, and for the family, runs and controls the properties and takes care of all that and does it for a lot of other people. So my family's in, business development and housing, and my uncle's a loan broker, right, and does loans and stuff. And my mother was a banker. She worked at Wells Fargo for 48 years. And so everyone kind of, worked together as a family. And I know that you have the same, where your families are all involved in business and things. But but I want to know, Darrel, a little bit about your childhood and how, you came. So you're native, or spend most of your life here in LA, right?
Yes. Well, yeah.
California.
Pretty close to half of my life in LA County.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So interesting. So my grandfather, uncle, and my dad were trucking contractors. Oh. They would follow the produce, the pisca, as it was called. So they were by way of Fremont, Brownsville, Texas. So
Brownsville.
They were from Brownsville. So we're like Falfurria, South Texas, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
And what they did is they would follow the produce. The people in the fields would load them onto their trucks. They would take them to the packing shed where they were, cleaning them and getting them ready to send out to wherever they send it out to. So my father met my mother in Imperial Valley. My mother's father was one of the largest cattle contractors in this little city called Heber, which is in Imperial Valley. So my dad met my mom, during one of his stays there. They ended up falling in love, got married, ended up going back to Texas. My mother wanted to come visit her family and for Thanksgiving, so I was born in El Centro. Went back to Texas. My other brother was born in Santa Maria. Went back to Texas. My third brother was born somewhere in Salinas or some other place up there, wherever they were doing the produce run. So my grandfather decided, my mother's father says, hey, I want to be raised by my closer to my grandkids. I got some land, and I'm willing to give the Saucedas 5 acres of land to come relocate their family. So that's how the Saucedas ended up in Imperial Valley.
All right.
Born in El Centro. I did a lot of my younger years in a little town called Holtville. So that's kind of the upbringing of a very rural, agricultural Chicano, right? We're a little bit different. We're not city folk type of people. We're used to, it's just a different lifestyle of Latinos in that type of environment. So when I was about 7 years old, the family decided that they were going to try to open up a business here in Orange County. Uh-huh. So I grew up in an area called Delhi, which isn't too far from where we're speaking at right now. So Delhi is one of the areas that I remember as a young kid going to school in Santa Ana. So I did a lot of my growing years in Santa Ana. In the 70s, late 60s and 70s, Latinos, I always say that I was just misunderstood, right? And it might have been because of who I was or how I was brought up, is I always didn't seem to fit the right mold of the typical kid that went to school. So I bounced around a lot. We ended up in Santa Ana, and we ended up in Garden Grove. We ended up in Anaheim. So, even though my mother had a master's and worked for the city manager of the city of Westminster, it just seemed like I wasn't given the opportunity, or it was just not the right thing for me to finish my schooling. So, married young, trying to figure out how I was gonna, make it in life. My first marriage didn't go very well. It lasted 13 years. And fast forwarding it, that's how I met my wife, Anna. I was 29 years old, almost 30, and we've been married 38 years, have an amazing marriage. Yeah. But, like anything in life, it's work.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm an LA transplant is what I call people, right? So, it's a lot of my growing up years were Orange County, but I still never forget where I came from, which is Imperial Valley. So I got a soft spot for Imperial Valley as we've been out cultivating and trying to figure out how we're going to bring quality of life to people in that valley.
Doing that now.
We're doing it today. This is what we're doing. We have permits now ready to go to bring, to build workforce housing for these families that really deserve it. They really deserve quality of life. And we're trying to figure out a plan on how to create a generational wealth through home ownership.
So this actually runs a little deeper too, as to the reason why you're building out there in Imperial Valley, not just to as a business model, but also because it's dear to your heart.
It's what moves me. It's one of my passions. Is I understand, and the difference between individuals like myself is you could be educated in a book, and you could see statistics. But when you live it, and it's who you are, you have understanding of young adults in the barrios or in the ghettos, whatever they're called now, right? Neighborhoods. But when you don't really understand the struggle that they don't know how to get out of that rut, then how do you guide them? And I think that was one of the things that I've been blessed to have, walked the walk, and again, I wasn't a violent individual, but, my journey, again, I fell victim to, a lot of the addictions in the neighborhood because it just was, right? So yeah, it's again, I'm 68 years old. I have a long journey, and I have a lot more to do as well still.
Yeah.
But God has put it in my path that leading LA County, the DEO and workforce development was, I sat around with all these individuals with double masters, and just wondering, what am I doing here? And speaking to a lot of the staffers, they said, hey, you're the better person because you understand. You've lived that. You understand what these individuals are going through.
Exactly.
And how to elevate them.
You can help make the right decisions, the clutch decisions that maybe they're making, and they're wasting money or putting money in the wrong places, right? And you know how to direct it as to exactly how it could impact better for the community, right?
Absolutely, because I always look at individuals as assets, not liabilities. That's the business mind of me, where I look at things as, I'm going to invest in this because it's an asset. It's the thing to do, right? But, you can't put people into a box. You have to really understand who they are so that you're able to says, okay, this is going to fit. This is what's going to work.
That's so interesting, because sitting on chairs and councils and boards and things, you get together and you basically are like minds, all that, have the power to make some pretty strong, powerful decisions that affect a lot of people, and those people, it directs their life, and they give them help in areas and stuff. And, sometimes, you're right that maybe some of those decisions are more, aren't made by looking at people as assets or looking at them as, their hearts. Because sometimes I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money, and boy, that can do some good, and as a, a citizen, wow, why is that amount of money being spent there? It's like, wow, that's pretty amazing. The amount of dollars that are flowing out there and things. And also, interestingly enough, you hear about all this money allocated towards, for poverty and for homelessness and addiction, and it never get, well, I don't know. I can't say it never gets to them, but it's really hard when you see the struggles and issues, getting worse, at least us being a citizen, seeing it, on the streets and stuff. But that, it's good to know that there's someone like yourself that's there that is gonna, speak for the people, And
you're right, though. The system sees us as a dashboard, as an indicator of, this is what makes them feel good, or this is how they should invest their money. Is that always the wisest way to invest the money? I disagree with them. So let's talk about homelessness, right?
Yes.
Homelessness is a big deal in LA, and
Yes.
we're always mixed up in it because funding by the billions gets sent. By the billions gets sent, and nobody knows where it's at, right? And the real thing is that most of the people that are homeless choose to live like that,
right?
They want to be off the grid. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to live on minimal, whatever money they can get their hands on.
No responsibilities.
No responsibilities. They're just tired. They gave up in life.
Right.
So how do you change? How do you change that mindset? That's
the mindset. So it's more mental. It's like right.
You're right.
It's all mental.
It's mental health.
Mental health.
So first of all, you got to start with mental health.
Yes.
But again, I always look at it as a realist. And it just seems that the system's always looking for something that's disadvantaged so that they can make additional money for themselves. I've always said, a fly comes and, you get sick because the flies went on your food. It creates an opportunity for the hospital to take care of you. The thief comes and steals your stereo. You got to go to the insurance. You go buy another stereo. You
making everybody money by that fly.
Right, that fly. It's just every negative is creating a positive, all the way down to war.
Yeah.
I mean, war is, definitely a driver in our economy as well. So, back to homelessness. We can fix it. The problem is they have to figure this out. That a lot of these people don't want to be told what to do no more. They turn themselves into these shelters. They can't have any dogs. They're disconnected from their only people that they think are their friends because they live in the same mold that they do. So, homelessness is definitely going to be a big challenge.
Yeah, I was watching some YouTube documentaries and the system. And I mean, it's a lifestyle. It's in a sense an organized community.
Yeah.
To be protected, to have your space, you have to actually have a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Or do things, or have, do trades as such of that matter. To be able to do that. So it's pretty interesting. And it's also almost like for people that are like really close. Maybe the drugs will kind of get you there, and you're like, oh, it kind of opens up the mind to say, maybe this is okay. I can continue to do these drugs, and I can live on the street, not have to worry about, my boss and, and things. Now, granted, what I don't understand that, but what I do understand is addiction.
Yeah.
And what drugs do to you, how they can make you feel, how they make you have the case of the F-its for life, and the more and the deeper you get into them, the more that F grows until you say the big F-it to everything, right?
Yeah.
But, and I think that just personally, my just opinion on that really quick is just like, the mental health, because I was told something like, years ago, some of the big hospitals here in LA were shut down. That's where the money should have gone, to keep those alive, to more staffing for that, to build more, opportunity, like more of those hospitals, those almost what used to be kind of psych wards. But there's so many programs out there that could really be really invested in, and maybe even invest in the auditing companies as well to overlook those. Fine, but invest in that surrounding. Okay, let's look at everything with the microscopic scope, because there's a lot of, bad things going on within that system as well, which kind of, affected the homelessness. But fine, when you're in government contracts and stuff, that you need to be audited. Great, let's put a microscope over those systems, but put money towards more of them, That's just my opinion. But
no, but you're right though. I mean, it's just, everything makes dollars and cents. Let's talk about, the homeless. Getting back to that one, it's, if there's administrative fee, it creates jobs. It's, so 30% of the dollars that are invested in that are going to pay staff to monitor it.
Yes.
Is it being taken advantage of, or is it not? I mean, I would think, yes, the money's not going where it needs to go, and it's not helping who it needs to help. I just felt like the whole thing has just been exploited. Nobody's taking it serious because it's not their mission. It's just a job to them. Very few people are driven by the passion or a purpose of doing the right thing. And how is that? You got to be compassionate to humanity. You have to understand. You understand it. I understand that. It wasn't by choice that we says, oh, when I'm a kid, I want to be a drug addict, or I want to be a drunk. It wasn't something that we thought about as children. Not that I said I want to be an astronaut or a president. That wasn't something I dreamed of. But I wanted to make something of myself, but it just wasn't to be. So I believe that what I went through, it had to been the plan, so that I can, as a life changer and a person that sits on boards, that's the chairman of the board, that's a decision maker, I could tell you how it feels to be a part of something that's dysfunctional to the world or to the society. But when you're in that space, that's all you know.
Yeah.
And who's going to go out? Who's going to come and change you, or who's going to be a difference maker in your life? There's a lot of people like me that I know that are difference makers in people's lives. You yourself. I mean, look at your program. The foundation you started is you start teaching these young adults how to become songwriters. They come with a better self-esteem, and hopefully that thing will pay it forward. Another person will get impacted. So I'm hoping that what we do is going to be a starting point, and then from there it's going to pay it forward. So other people get to hear the message.
Yes. I'd love to talk a little bit about the work that you do and the work that the chamber does.
Sure.
Because you personally, I know, have mentored and partnered with young business businesses and business minded individuals, and you've helped counseled and helped grow so many people, yourself, you and Anna, as well as a chamber. I'm interested in hearing a little bit of some of the work the chamber has done and is doing looking forward.
So the chamber was, we were shifting. The chamber needed a fresh vision or a fresh look at how the organization was going to move forward. I was approached by my fellow board members that I was the next person in line to take the lead. Well, so I turned it down half a dozen times. I just wasn't interested in being, the face of an organization. And I think I shared with somebody earlier that, I'm happy just being the guy to play the maracas in the band.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because I know who I am, right? And so as I took over the chamber, it's been 5 years now, and we put a new vision. We took taglines like "Back to the Basics." We took on taglines like "Forging Forward" and amongst other things. And so basically, what I've done is I've created what we have done. The board and myself has created an organization that's more focused on how we elevate each other as business people.
Yes.
We're not talking about small business or micro business no more. We just say business people. So as we explored it, myself being a business development person for 3 decades plus, I understand the struggle that business people go through and trying to identify a good opportunity for themselves. Or maybe they know how to do something, but they're not sure on how they're going to put it together.
Right.
So the organization was started, we started out during the pandemic, which is the worst time of ever. So we started putting together a series of webinars that were very instrumental in helping people understand how to navigate through unfamiliar times.
Yeah.
As we continued on, we created what we call the Business Expo. So we brought about 200 business together, and then that's when we had an aha moment. Says, this could work, but we need to figure out how to create a platform. So I worked with some friends of mine out of San Diego to create our own URL.
Yeah.
So the URL is called Listo. Listo is a portal designed specifically for the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
And what that portal does is it vets businesses, creates opportunities to do business with businesses.
Yes.
So every day, people are calling, hey, I got to do my taxes. Do you recommend somebody that could understand my business? Well, in our business portal, you type in tax man or tax preparer, and one or two will pop up. And those are the ones that we've vetted, and they're the ones that are going to be taking care of our business needs. And
I love it.
Whoever needs it.
Yes.
We have, flooring guys, plumbing guys. We have caterers, you name it. We have them in that portal. The portal will never grow any larger than 300 people, because I believe that 300 people, living out of that slice of the pie, is going to create enough opportunities for everybody.
Yeah.
So Listo's 7 months old. We're maybe 80 businesses in it. Myself and a committee are the ones that vet the companies to make sure that, number one, that they're ready to go, financially ready, understand how to create a winning proposal, and from there, we give them the mentoring they need. So I myself and a few other businesses are out cultivating. So we become like your personal salesman. You tell me what you do, and then we're going out, and as we hear opportunities, then we're calling you in, says, hey, we got a match for you. And that's what we're calling business to business. So right now, we're working with AB 1392, which is legislation that the board crafted to the state of California to offer opportunities for local businesses to work with hospitals where we've been locked out. You have to go through a PEO, and then they control the billion-dollar industries of the hospitals.
Right.
So we spent 3 years writing the new law to help level the playing field for all of us.
I applaud you for that.
So it's a law now. So you that are out there that are interested in working for the hospitals, all you have to do is say AB 1392, and that's your in. Now, the rest is up to you. You need to understand what that means. And our chamber, when you reach out to us, we will bring you in, and then we will ask you and interview you to see what is it you know, what is it that you do know, and then we're going to put you into a matrix. And that matrix will say, this is where your business is at right now.
Yes.
And then from there, we will start looking for opportunities, or we will team you up with a tier one. They'll help groom you to become from a 2 to a 1 in the years to come.
So a big reason why I felt that our audience, and I'm very grateful that we have some consistent viewers, musicians and young entrepreneurs and young students, is because, as an artist, in your art, there's business. How can you get people to hear you, to see your art, to hear your art, to, build business, to live your life, to continue doing your art, And, I feel the chamber is a big part in helping me and can help so many others. So what is the URL where they can go to see and start to investigating some of these opportunities?
So the way you get onto Listos, you go to lalcc.org, and in there, there's a tab where you can hit Listo.
Okay.
And from there, you can start finding out the information on what Listo's all about.
Beautiful.
It's an amazing a portal.
Yes.
And we're getting traction. I'm speaking about it at the USC. The UC systems.
Yes.
We're speaking about it in Phoenix through the Department of Defense. They're interested in seeing how they could utilize our tool. And that what makes it so unique about our tool is that because it's vetted, it's a business vetted by a business.
Right.
So it's not, we truly understand what it takes to be successful. And how do you do that? Is you have to have another expert, explain to you, or not be afraid to tell you, this is what you need to do to be successful. Why? I'm 68 years old. I've been in the business a long time.
Yes.
So I know, don't follow my path, because the failures I'm going to share with you how to get there without following fallen into the traps like I did, and resourceful.
Yes.
The chamber's resourceful. We know where to go, who to talk to. Right now we have our policy guys in Washington, D.C. As I was coming up here, I was having a meeting with another congressman regarding some of the things that we need in our area. We have policy people in Sacramento. So we're not the typical chamber that you might be familiar with. If you're looking for cafecito on Monday, that's not us. If you're looking for these mixers, that's not us. We are a true business organization that believes in business, and we know how to get it done, because once you get onto llcc.org, you'll find out that the board of directors is the who's in the country. These people have made their mark, and they're amazing minds, and I'm so honored to have them as my board of directors and for them to choose me to be their leader, because I continue to be mentored through them as well. It's not a day that'll go by that, the chair emeritus Gil Vasquez is calling me, and first thing is how you feeling? We believe in the chamber, health is your wealth.
Yes.
We believe that with a sound mind,
yes,
that we can make great decisions.
Yes.
To help impact and elevate people as well. It's so I can't say enough about the chamber. It's been an amazing journey for me. Not sure when it's over with. I mean, the last chairman was there 12 years. So we're not one of those guys that 1 or 2 years you're barely getting in the mix, and all of a sudden it's new chairman time.
Yeah. No, it's barely starting.
We don't believe in that. Now any individual can be taken out by any two board of directors that says, you're not being true to our mission.
Mm-hmm.
So at any given time, we put in the bylaws that two board members can get together. They can consult, go to the board and says, chairman's he's not being true to the mission, and let's remove him. So it's not like I'm going to be there forever. As long as I'm doing the right thing and being a good chairman, yes, for my board, yes, then I will continue to be there. But
amen to that.
Yeah, but it's it's like your journey with the foundation, Andy Vargas Foundation, and we're so blessed to have friends in Pico.
Yes.
Senators, Gustavo Camacho.
Well, Mayor Gustavo Camacho,
yeah,
for Pico Rivera,
yeah,
and Senator Suzanne Rubio.
Yeah,
great friends and great people,
mm-hmm,
and who have been. Thank you so very much for you being key into helping align our introductions, because you and Anna, because we just knew that. I mean, like yourself, have so much energy that I want to put into helping others. And in my case,
yeah,
young adults, young aspiring musicians, and then in the same manner, wanting to guide by my mistakes, because it's not that I want them to make the same. It's that there's some key, simple knowledge to know, along with having fun, utilizing the latest tools of technology to make music.
Yeah.
At the same time, maybe some tricks of maybe some conscience in songwriting, to help guide or at least acknowledge that there is a conscience there, and that should be nurtured as well as just the business, and just a couple of things to protect that consciousness when you start really, flowing it. And so, I'm happy that we were able to, work. First started out with, Supervisor Gutierrez in the 5th District of Riverside, starting there. And we're still working with them, and so happy that we're still able to work with, Moreno Valley High School students and Hemet, and Beaumont, students, and we have some amazing students that we've been working with who are just.
I've seen them.
I'm
Amazing.
and I hope that we can have this, air before our March 14th concert show, but we will also have a March 21st talent show in Moreno Valley High.
Yeah.
At the Moreno Valley Arts Center on the 21st with our students that we've been working with in District 5. And the same process now, we'll be able to work with our Pico Rivera students with, Gustavo Camacho, and very excited to be working with, high school kids there. We don't know who they are yet, or maybe we know who some of them are, but the ones that we don't know who they are, I'm excited to meet them, and then also just expanding all throughout because we will be working with God's favor out in Pomona as well.
Absolutely.
So, but and with the help of our elected officials, and through a good strong relationship with them. And with each other, we can make some we could turn on the lights of inspiration and I think help alleviate and confirm any doubts that they have of themselves, and help them to really understand and believe in the power that they have through whatever it is, business, apply all of that energy into being business minded. And there's so many amazing ways. Thank you for building this portal, because, prior to the portal, I'd be able to do it through connections and contacts and through, introductions, by the chamber and you and Anna. And so those movements and things, and then just keep on, being, there, true to your word, and showing up when the door opens, right?
Well, you're so blessed to have great storytellers to tell your story, because I still believe that people buy from people, and surrounding yourself with people that are not able to be compromised in who they are will tell you the circle you run in. So, I'm not always the most popular. And I understand that, but I don't deviate from who I am, and I'm a solid guy that if I say this is the way it is, and people believe the story because it's true to be, and again it's you're an easy sale because the proof's in the pudding. You're doing it already, and for us it's a no-brainer. It's just like if we can help elevate you. And the kids, we need to start investing in them.
Yes,
one way or another.
That's
going to cost
100%, and it will cost. Yeah,
if they take the wrong path, we were talking about addiction. How many billions do we spend in trying to get them on track? Why don't we spend it now, so that we can get them with another pathway of their life?
Yes, I agree.
We got it all wrong. We spend a lot of money on things that we don't need to spend money on, when we should be invested in our youths, our kids.
And you love music too. You're an avid music lover. And you have a record label too.
We have a record label in San Antonio called Brown Soul.
Brown Soul?
Called Brown Soul.
Brown Soul. What a great name, man.
And the record label is managed by David and Ida Mares. And the way that came up was 22 years ago, we were in Atlanta, and we felt that the genre of Tejano music was kind of taking a skid. And we says, well, so what do we need to do, like Flacorico, like other traditions that we have? Well, somehow or other, Tejano music just kind of felt right for me, So we started a thing called a Tejano convention with myself, Anna, a guy named David Chavez, and a guy named Fred Sotelo, that's out of San Diego. So we had a good friend of ours named Vince Ordunes that I still talk to, and he was our first funder of $250,000 to create this thing called the Tejano Convention. And what it was to educate individuals They wanted to understand the Lithuanian sound of the accordion and the brown sound and the this and the that and the orchestra music that came to be is something that we wanted to teach the people. So the Tejano convention, the first one was at the Rio in Vegas. And it was to educate people on what exactly is Tejano music, right? Now we're happy to say we're our 23rd year.
23rd year.
23rd year in July. So as understanding and trying to elevate these artists, we brought disc jockeys and attorneys from all over the country to educate these young artists on how to, how to get their music into the radio stations and, so on and so on.
When's the next one?
July, I think it's July 15th or the 20th.
Okay.
You can look at a Tejano convention, Las Vegas, and it'll come up on Google.
Is it always in Las Vegas, Tejano convention?
It's in Las Vegas because we felt, so the first year was in Vegas. The following years, I think we did it in Dallas and one in San Antonio. But, because there wasn't enough of an experience for people to say, I want to make this my vacation. So people now book Vegas.
Of course.
They have a vacation.
That's where it's at.
Get the music they love and so on and so on.
Beautiful.
So we felt, okay, so what are the setbacks of an artist? Why can't they, what happens to them when they go to a promoter, right? So the promoter, engineers their music, they record their music, they help market their music, and they also own their masters. So we came up with this group called the B&B Group. And the B&B Group, what they've done is they have, I think, a 13 Grammy-winning engineer that's Gilbert Velasquez, right? Chete Barrera plays drums, and he's an amazing vocalist, and a guy named Jorge Morequin, which came out to be the B&B Group. And what they've done is through the funding of our group and a bunch of friends, we put a plan together where they would get master engineering, great recordings, and then the B&B Group would own the masters for 2 years until they help get their music out into the flow and market them, and then they would give them back their masters. So now they will be in control of their own music from that time on. As part of the conditions, they would have to do, I think, a concert at no cost for the venue. And so there's a couple of things that went in and out, but, a lot of artists went through it, and now, they're now recording Tejano music or cumbia music or music like that. So
and have a name for themselves.
they have a name for themselves. They all started, through that program that we created. Now, I've kind of taken another direction. I'm happy that I was a part of that movement to help individuals. And now, my purpose now is coming home, saying, okay, what do I need to do to become a difference maker in people's lives? And that's this housing thing that I'm involved in. And we're now involved with a coalition, which is the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce will be taking the lead on how do we rebuild lives in Altadena. How's that going to happen? So we're going to meet Friday with the group. We're working with the insurance commissioners on how they can lower the rates of insurances, how we could build more affordable housing. So that's something now that I'm bringing closer to home to see how we could, impact. And I know the music business is crazy. I can't keep up with you guys. I get too old now. I mean, I used to do all-nighters. Now it's like I got to be in bed by 8 or 9.
Well, you are very busy. You and Anna.
Yeah.
Nicole and I. You definitely give us a run for the money, man, because you guys are at all the right places, and you put on a lot of amazing events and stuff. And so our hats off to you, definitely, and being leaders in the community. and also making lots of change in millions of people's lives, and so it's amazing, especially my heart and our hearts go out to everyone affected in the Altadena fires, and everyone. I have some ideas as well that thinking about that work that you'll be doing there. So thank you for sharing that. And so that's some awesome news about the future. And I do have a question for you though, just really quick, going back to Salinas and stuff, because I'm from Watsonville, so we have a little similarity there in being from that area. But did your family ever get involved with the farmers union at all, or?
No, and again, my parents, grandfather, this is back into the, I'm a 57's kid. So that means this is the 50s, and the 60s. I think it's pre-Cesar Chavez, and I could be wrong because I'm not really. Even though I'm from a rural area, my wife will argue with me if she sees this, and I keep saying, "Well, I wasn't a farm worker." She goes, "Well, you had to have been." I says, "Well, there's a difference." I go, "If you're a picker and you work in the harvest, that's a farm worker, right?" I grew up on a farm, but we were the transportation. We were the logistic component to getting the produce from the fields to the package sheds to get to the stores or wherever it happened in the 60s, right? So there is a difference. So, but as we went to school in Imperial Valley in Hopeville, it was interesting because a lot of my friends were from Santa Maria and Salinas. Yeah. So I used to grow up as a kid, like, man, I want to be from Salinas, right? That's before Salina was like was like a Salina. But I've always loved Northern California.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful land, and I see a lot of parallel similarities in the sense of my family. My brother now works in agriculture, and so he's there, selling, and so he manages the time that the trucks come and all that for the pickups, and then has the accounts with the different companies and things, and all of that was really going on. And I myself as well. Later on, I met the family of Dolores Huerta and her son Rick and Memo Ibarra. And they became amazing friends of ours. I think they might have come and said hello to you at our golf fundraiser. Yes. Those boys, they're my dear friends, and they're doing amazing things. But I met them later on. But the union had such an impact and affected us in our area. I do know that I was very, very passionate about the effects of pesticides. Because you could just smell when they would drop, and it was always a certain time, and I'd always felt that I would get headaches, later on from them and things. And I think the cancer rates were pretty heavy and stuff, and, allegedly. But, true. That was a big deal. And so I was very passionate about that, and to know, to later on to meet, Dolores. And Dolores is one of Carlos's, heroes. Wow. And the documentary and the movie, the Lotus movie and all of that came out was pretty big. And so I feel I'm really grateful that I'm from Watsonville, and I have lots of our family and friends still in Watsonville, and have graduated from Watsonville High and stuff. And so it's a great area, and Salinas as well, and Castroville. I just got the Castroville artichoke shirt, it's a big heart, because when you drive through there, you see the artichoke heart, my friend, Art Valdez, got me a shirt, of the big artichoke.
That's cool. It's cool to be from a small town.
It really is.
I don't even know how to explain it to people that there's just a different, it's a different vibe, to understand how simple life is. And, there's not much to do, but you learn to make it work, right? And gives you plenty of time to really sit and think about, what direction you want to go in. And I remember as a kid, fishing in the canal with the stick and a rope fishing for crawdads, or throwing rocks or something. I mean, there wasn't really much to do, but
some of the simple things in life, though, Darrel, like that these days, kids run to the phone before they go and want to throw rocks.
And you're right. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I myself, I don't know if I should be embarrassed or not, but I'm thinking that I was never a part of the movement, of Cesar and the Chavez family or Dolores, because it just wasn't the space I was in.
Right.
Affirmative action was something that just like, the Chicano movement is something I'm learning because I have like two of the original Brown Berets, which is Montezuma Esparza, that says, that how it all started. So I'm listening to the story, but, I listen, but I can't feel it. It's just like, wow, what a struggle it must have been, for guys like David Lizarga that moved Telecu, and, how they've created, opportunity for East LA.
Yeah.
And I learned to respect it. And I'm mentored by those men that are on my board. But I think it's cool though, but when it's all said and done, I'm just a valley boy. Mi frontera es Mexicali.
Yeah.
Allá hablamos poco español y inglés también, pero bien mucho, but I'm here.
Yeah. Well, and we're so very grateful for you, to being here, Darrel. And thank you for your time to be able to be here and hear your story and hear all the amazing things you're doing to open and share the opportunity for anyone that would be watching this to also be able to have an opportunity to get into your portal. And
if you could dream it, you can make it happen. You know, I mean, I live by, I have rules that I live by. My purpose in life, it's again to, help people. And I truly live that every day. Every day I'm traveling, and every day I'm helping somebody, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, not millions, but, a few. Help give them direction and clarity to their lives. And, I thank God that He's anointed me with that wisdom. I'm a statistic. I get it. I should not be where I'm at in life, but I am. And, I think that, we should all really embrace that, God is real, and I think that if we all reach out to Him and give Him the recognition He deserves, He could change your life.
Amen.
And believe me, I'm not one of those Christians that, walks around with the Bible. I say bad words sometimes, right? and I'm a tough guy, when it comes to it. But I'll never take it lightly that He's in my life, and I encourage people out there that are listening to this that find a purpose, man. Find out what you want to do. It doesn't have to be what I do, but be meaningful. Be a volunteer. Go give from your heart. Don't be a generous giver. What is it going to cost you? But a little bit of time that you don't have to worry about your social media or do things that you do. Put an hour into doing something different. But I thank you so much for the opportunity. I wasn't sure what I was going to speak about today, but I'm grateful and humbled.
You filled us up with so much knowledge and just your time, because I could sit and listen to you forever, honestly.
Thank you.
So I'm so very grateful to have Darrel here with us. Darrel, thank you so very much for joining us today.
I'm humbled. Thank you so much.
I look forward to hearing the more music from Label, and also if the convention happens again, very soon. We'll put all of the information in the information below for everybody.
Absolutely.
for the portal and also for the upcoming convention.
Absolutely. Love to see everybody there.
All right.
Welcome. It's going to be 4 days of nothing but nonstop music. We have showcase. We have bands from all over the country performing on the showcase stage.
Amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
I hope I can make it one year.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us here at the LA with the LA Chamber Chair, Darrel Sauceda, and thank you for joining us here at the Andy Vargas AV Lyric Lounge. Peace.